All right, Buber part 2. Good. So today we are going to look at how what we learned last time applies to romantic relationships, right? Last time we generally learned how to encounter another human being as a you. We saw that the way we act towards them is important in revealing them as a human being, right? It's not enough to just, it's not an intellectual thing. It's how you, right? If you abstain from using, if you abstain from putting borders, if you abstain from discarding, all of these actions, right, are a way for you to enter into this deeper way of relating, right? You are beginning now to see the person as a you. You are in a way opening up this sacred dimension again, right? So, and we saw it's not an intellectual thing. It's not you're sitting around and you're like, oh, there's a you, right? No, right? It's the way you act towards a person, right? You act in a way that doesn't treat them as an object. You discipline yourself not to put borders on them, not to despair of them, not to stereotype them. We talked about all of this last time. When it comes to encountering a human being as a you, right? So it's a way. So Buber again is not saying right or wrong. There's no right or wrong in Buber. It's just, do you want to have a superficial experience or a deep experience, right? If you treat everyone as an it, you have a superficial experience, right? Where everyone is just an object. There's nothing more than just that, right? But if you begin to treat people as a you, according to Buber, your life will go into a deeper dimension, right? You will enter this new, deeper way of relating, right? So he's simply giving you the option, right? You can use people as it's, that's fine. Go for it. Be my guest, he would say, right? But you're missing out on all of the glory, right? Of being in touch with a human being as a you. Okay, so we talked about that last time. We saw page 55. Now he's going to narrow it down to romantic relationships, right? So he is actually going to address two types of romantic relationships which were developing at the time, or which were already happening at the time that he is writing, right? And we still have some kind of similar relationship, right? Relationships going on. These are two options that we might choose, right? The first one he calls marriage, right? So let me write this down. Make sure everyone is seeing this, right? So that one is classic, right? We all know about marriage. But then he has one that he would call free love, right? So this is more, so let me define this, right? Free love is just, you don't have any formal agreement, right? You're with someone, and we're going to talk about a little more about what that means, but you're with someone as long as it lasts, and when it stops, you're off to a new conquest, right? So it's a little more fluid, right? You're a little more attentive to your feelings. When your feelings indicate that the relationship has run its course, you move on, right? So this is kind of the free love approach is a feeling-based approach, right? Where, you move on when you feel, right? This is a feeling that the relationship has run its course. So this is, right, quite common, right? This is in fact the way most of us date, right? Before, of course, the formal engagement, right? A lot of us actually function on that level, right? We follow our hearts, it's going well, and then it's, things start to disintegrate and we sense, well, okay, it seems that it's time to move on, right? So, and then you have marriage, right? The solid institution. And what's interesting today is that Buber is gonna criticize both. He's going to show the qualities of both, but he's also going to criticize both. And then he's going to give us another path, right? So we're going to see how he goes about doing that, right? So Buber is not writing as a conservative, right? He's observing these two ways that we engage with each other romantically. And he's going to show what is good about it, what is authentic about it, but he's also going to criticize so that we can move into a third way, right, which he will propose. So let's go and look at how he first talks about marriage. I am on page 94. Okay, so the second paragraph, that institutions, are you there? You can put your hand in the screen if you're there. Okay, great. Okay, so let me summarize briefly and then we'll read, right? He's going to basically say that marriage, in a way, well, actually, let's just read. We'll read and then I'll comment. Okay, so he's talking here about institutions. When he says the word institutions, he means marriage, right? So then he begins the criticism, right? So he says that institutions yield no public life is felt by more and more human beings to their sorrow. This is the source and the distress and search of our age. So in other words, he's observing around himself, right, that the institution of marriage is not yielding what he calls public life, which is another word for community. In other words, marriage doesn't seem to be functioning, doesn't seem to be creating genuine community. Okay, so, and he realizes, right, even people get married, they're together, they stay together, but the love has quickly evaporated. So many, he notices, and some of you certainly have noticed, right? Some of you, it's your parents, right? They're there, they're together, but nothing exists anymore between them. And so he's saying this is a crisis we are in. Marriage doesn't seem to yield any type of genuine communion, right? Community. Marriages are dry and empty and robotic and in a way soulless, right? And so he's saying this is the distress and search of our age. And this is today the case too. Not only when you look around and you look at the marriages around you, they don't look appealing, right? But most of us, right, are not even getting married anymore, right? If you look at the statistics in New York, right? I think if you just look at Manhattan, Queens is a little different. Manhattan, like 60-70% of the people are not married, right? People are not opting for this option anymore. Why? Because it doesn't work, according to Buber. It doesn't seem to work, right? You see people getting together and then they either get a divorce or they have this lifeless marriage, right? So this is a crisis, right, that we are still in. And Buber is going today to search for the why we are in such a crisis and what can we do to heal our marriages, right? So today, actually, after going through the problem of marriage and the problem of free love, he's going to then go back to marriage and give us a path towards healing a given marriage. How do we overcome this crisis, right? The path of redemption of free love will come when we do Irigaray, right? She's going to be talking about free love up in, she's going to be thinking in the context of the post-marriage world. She's not talking about marriage, but she's talking about how can we redeem free love and create a lasting relationship in that context, right? But today, Buber is going to try to redeem marriage, okay? So that's the idea. So then he says, okay, so people see that marriage doesn't work, and so they have decided, let's go the opposite direction, and which is what he calls the direction of free love. So let's continue reading. That feelings, are you there? Let me see, put your hand in the screen, just where I stopped, right? So then he says, these people turn to feelings, okay, summary. In other words, they say, well, marriage doesn't work. This is all, right? People stay in marriages for duty, for economic reasons, for all the wrong reasons. So let's drop marriage and let's follow our hearts. That's the other path, right? We want to be authentic. We don't want to stay in a kind of zombie relationship, right? We want to make sure the heart is alive. So in my relationships, the decision they make, the free love movement, right? They say, I want to make sure my heart's in it. And if my heart's not in it, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I'm not going to be inauthentic. I'm going to stop, right? The relationship. So this is what he says. So he says that feelings yield no personal life has been recognized by few so far. Sorry, let me skip. Second paragraph, those who suffer. Are you there? Okay. So now he's talking about the backlash, right? The free love backlash. Free love movement, which is wanting to set aside the institution, right? So they say those who suffer because institutions yield no public life have thought of a remedy. Let's do things differently. Instead of staying in a marriage out of duty, out of, economic need, for the kids, let's pick a more authentic path, right? And so the more authentic path is feelings are to loosen up and thaw or explode the institutions, right? As if the institutions could be renewed by feelings, by introducing the freedom of feelings. So in other words, and this is positive, right? Buber is actually sympathetic to this. He's saying, so these people are saying, let's not stay in a dead marriage. Let's go back and listen to our hearts. Let's be faithful to our experience. Let's follow the ways of the heart instead of following the ways that are imposed on us by society, right? So against this idea that marriage, you know, you have to stay together, society orders you to stay together, even if you hate each other. He's saying, no, now we're gonna explode the institution and follow our hearts, right? And that way our relationship will have feeling in it. It will be authentic. We will really try to cultivate the feeling, right? Instead of simply submitting to the institution. But then he says this, so now begins the criticism. When the automatized state yokes together totally uncongenial citizens. So he's talking about marriage again, right? He's saying when they're yoked together and they don't belong together, without creating or promoting fellowship, it is supposed, now here comes the free love movement, to be replaced by a loving community, right? So let's get rid of marriage and let's just create a loving community based on the feeling of love, right? Let's just cultivate love. Let's not talk about duty, just love, right? This is the idea, right? They're saying, let's stop talking about duty. This kind of, you know, Kantian, right? We've done Kant, you know Kant, he hates feelings. This kind of, you know, cold, feelingless duty, and let's talk about love. Good, says Buber, but he continues. This loving community is supposed to come into being when people come together, prompted by free, exuberant feeling and want to live together. And he says, this is beautiful, but he continues, this is not how things are. And listen to what he says. True community does not come into being because people have feelings for each other. In other words, feelings are not enough, right? If you're only going to base your relationship on feelings, you're in trouble, because very quickly you will come to a situation where you hate your beloved, right? Where it's not going well. You're not happy. You don't feel any love. At that moment, of course, your heart will say, well, it's time to move on, right? And Buber is saying, you see, there needs to be something else which binds us together, something more reliable than feelings, because feelings go like this, right? You can fall out in love one day, fall back in love, fall out of love, right? So he's saying, yes, of course, feelings are important, but they cannot really, they are not enough to bind a couple together, right? So it's not going to be enough to create a lasting relationship, right? Everybody follows me with the two problems, right? First problem, let me write it down in the chat, right? This is the problem of marriage. I'm gonna write it down. This is the problem that duty takes over and there is no feeling left, but people still stay together. So this is hypocritical, inauthentic, robotic, and no one wants to be like this, right? That's the problem of marriage. Problem of free love, though, also is that feelings here now are taking over, but feelings are not enough to bind two people together in a lasting way. So now we have a problem on both sides, right? Okay, so he elaborates even further on the problem. And we're going to see that he calls one an I-it relationship, and the other, this is a new concept, an I-I relationship, right? He says this here. Go to page 92, the last line. Everybody there? Where last paragraph on page 92, standing under, are you there? Put your hand in the screen. Okay, so standing under the basic word of separation, which keeps apart I and it, right? We can divide life with our fellow men into two neatly defined districts: institutions, this is marriage, and feelings, this is free love. It district, this is marriage. I district, this is free love. So he's elaborating now. There is more problems. What he's saying here is that marriage will, one of the pitfalls of marriage, right, will be that the relationship degenerates, right? I'm typing this, into an I-it relationship. And the pitfall of free love is different. The relationship degenerates into, and this is new, we'll have to look at that, I relationship, Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this, right? Now I'm going to bring you in. We're going to talk a little bit, how does marriage become an I-it relationship? Very quickly, right? The spouses become its for each other. I want you to give me examples of what that looks like. You've seen marriages where it's become an I-it relationship. And then we're going to look at how this kind of more free loving, right, can also degenerate into an I relationship. Now, again, it doesn't need to be this way. Marriage can overcome the I-it. And likewise, we're going to see with Irigaray in a couple weeks, the free love doesn't have to degenerate into an I. It can rise above it also. We're going to talk about that. But today we focus on marriage. Okay, so I'm listening to you. What are some of the things you've seen in marriages that tell you, they have become now an I-it couple? Tell me a little bit what you've seen. Okay, so Evans. Okay, explain a little bit to us, Evans, what you mean. Give us details, juicy details.
I mean, I don't really think I've seen it, but like I've definitely heard about people talk like that you see that they're not really interacting anymore. They just kind of walk past each other. They don't even talk. It's just like that person sleeping next to you. And that's what they kind of turned into. So it's not even like a you, or it's not even helping yourself. It's just there.
They're good. They're sitting there like an object in the living room, right? There's no interaction, no true dialogue anymore. The conversation has died out. You're not talking face to face anymore. You're just kind of saying while you're looking away, did you take out the trash? Did you pick up the kids? Right? There's no face to face interaction anymore. Very good. That's a very nice way. I mean, very clear way, not nice, but very clear way that marriage can degenerate into an I-it. Other ways that marriage, that you've seen a marriage look like an I-it relationship. Give us some more examples. This should be easy. You're surrounded by marriages like that. Look in your own family. Look
Yeah,
no further.
I guess my own parents are like that sometimes. They would argue over stupid things that should be just, solved so easily, but then they find ways to argue sometimes that surprise me. Or you just sense that the feeling is gone. And it's actually very sad to kind of stand there and observe that scene happening. But it is how it is sometimes.
Okay, very good. Now, I would challenge you on the first thing you said. The fact that there is conflict, does that mean this is an I-it relationship? Knowing the definition of the IU, what does conflict actually say about the relationship?
I guess it's a way to step up, to go on another level,
Okay.
try to solve the problems, to discuss the things that trouble them.
Very good. So conflict is not necessarily a bad thing, right? In one of the other texts that we studied in the other class, if you remember in Buber, the you confronts me, right? This is one of the quotes in Buber. So the fact that there is conflict actually is a good sign, right? That there is kind of an IU relationship brewing, right? But you're right, most of the conflict doesn't get resolved. So people stay, there's no real communication, no real exchange, no real transformation. But the conflict itself, that's a good sign for Buber, right? However, yes, when you're talking about no more feelings, right, the love has died, then you're like, okay, they're just, they're not really, there's no warmth. So now you're looking more something more robotic. They go through the motions, but there's nothing in the heart, right? I-it. Very good. One last example. Let's all be depressed together. And then we'll try to make our way out of the depression with Buber. One last example.
What about a relationship that, let's say, was based off of something like not real, like that? Let's say someone married someone for a specific reason, let's say because they're family or because of money or for something superficial, like it was never really based on anything. So although you could pretend for a little bit of time, when it comes to actually like living with the person for so long, there was never actually like true feelings there. So they're not really, if the relationship is not based on anything real and it's just superficial, then it's a very easy way to like all of a sudden wake up and realize that you didn't marry someone for the right reasons, and there's no like feeling there.
Very good, right? A lot of us marry for it reasons. We see the person as provider, or we see the person as the end of solitude, or we see the person as finally I will look, normal to my friends, right? So many of us jump into marriage thinking of the other as an it, who will finally, I will be, I will have status, finally I will have comforts, finally we can have sex, finally, right, I can finally have some security. And so very often we actually jump into marriage seeing the person as something that will bring us advantage. So we are actually starting off the relationship on an I-it level. It's not even that it degenerates into the I-it. We often marry an it and not a you. Excellent. Wait, who were you? Let me remember your name. Where were you? Zimmerman. Excellent. Any other ways that we can degenerate into an it? We have to say them all before we can redeem them. So let's put them all on the table. What about, remember actually no, let's save it. It's fine. This is good. When we get into the redemption, we'll bring in more, okay? So you can see how, right? The marriage can even be based in an I-it relationship, or it can slowly degenerate into an I-it relationship where the husband or wife just becomes, the mother of my children or the provider. They're just the role they play in my life. There is no real communication anymore, right? They're just the father of my kids. They're just the one bringing in the money. They're just there so I can have some sex occasionally, right? So we have, right, and quickly you lose, right? This I-you that you once had. So that's the issue, right? So we'll come back around and see how Buber redeems this situation. But let's go quickly into the free love, which Buber calls an I-I relationship. Now this is a different, right? We haven't studied it, but can anyone give me an idea of what it would mean? We talked briefly in the introduction. What does it mean to be in an I-I relationship? How does the free love fall into that pitfall, or how is it susceptible of falling into that pitfall of the I-I relationship? Okay, Evans, elaborate again. Please come back.
So it's like you're only thinking about yourself, especially when it's something's based on like only feelings. So you're only going if you feel happy with that person or what you care about, or basically everything revolving around yourself.
Okay, very good. Right? When you're only thinking about your feelings, right? I feel good. Let's stay together. I don't feel good. It's time to move on. It's all just you and your feelings. There's not even something outside. It's just your feelings. I feel pain. Let me walk away. I feel pleasure. Let me stay. There's not even someone out there, even as an it, right? You are so self-absorbed in your feelings, right? That you are actually, according to Buber, in an I-I relationship. The other is just giving you feelings, right? Very good. Let's see, there's a couple more. Medina and Hassan, go ahead. First Medina and then Hassan.
I was going to say, when you're like kind of projecting your needs into the other person, so you're only thinking about what you need and what you want and what you don't want, but you're not thinking about the other person.
Excellent. You're projecting your needs on the other person. So they don't even exist as anything, not even an object. They're just completely, you are completely alone, right? You're projecting your needs and so forth. Very good. Excellent. Hassan, do you want to add?
Yeah, he goes over this in the last reading as well, where he goes over how people live almost in their own fantasy and their own comforts, and they just rely on that comfort and that feeling of like their own reality is what he said. I pretty much
Absolutely,
think.
right? You're locked up in your own sensations, right? So there's not even an it. You're completely involved in your own sensations, and that's why there's only I, right? So very good. So this is the problem, right? Now we're going to see how Irigaray redeems that situation, right? Without bringing the couple to an altar and be blessed by a priest. There is a way out. There is a way to still make a relationship work without the seal of marriage, right? According to her, right? But so we'll come back to that. But today we're going to go back to the marriage and see how we can redeem it. And this is important information today. because in 20 years, when your marriage starts to dissolve and disintegrate, I want you to remember today's lecture, right? Because this is going to really help you. All right, so let's get into the text. He says one simple thing, and we're going to analyze it. Go to page 95, top of the page. Even institutions, are you there? Put your hand in the screen. Okay. Even institutions of so-called personal life cannot be reformed by a free feeling. Okay, like saying feelings are not enough. Although this is also required, right? He's not like Kant saying the more you suffer, the more you hate your beloved, and the more you stay, nevertheless, now you're very moral. No, he admits feelings are important, but they're not enough, right? And now he says this, I want you to underline this. Marriage can never be renewed except by that which is always the source of all true marriage, that two human beings reveal the you to one another. All right, let's stop on that. So this is both of them. You reveal the you to one another, meaning I reveal your you, and I must also reveal my you. We're going to talk about that, right? It's not enough to just transform your gaze on the other and see them as a you. You also have to emerge again as a you. So we'll look at both of these. But first of all, let's stop a little bit. What would it look like based on what we studied last time on page 55, the I-you relationship? What does it look like to again reveal the you in the relationship? So let's remember what we read on page 55. Let's go there right now. That way we can now apply it directly to romantic relationship. All right, first thing we saw, page 55, whoever says you does not have something. We analyzed it. Tell me, how would you do this in a romantic relationship? Let's hear some of you clarify. What does it mean to not have something for an object in a romantic relationship? We saw that was pretty simple, right? What did we mean? First of all, what did we mean when we said you don't have something for an object? What are the two things you don't do? And if you know, please put it in the chat so we can move on. Thank you, Hassan. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. My hand is still up from the last question. What was the question again?
What does it mean to not have something for an object?
Not have something for an object or someone?
Okay, Medina, go ahead. Well, actually, I'll just say what you said. Okay, to not have something for an object you don't use, you don't discard. Now, how would that look in a romantic relationship? How do we sometimes use each other, and how do we sometimes discard each other?
I got it now. Page
55.
Page 95.
55. Oh, you're saying something else. Okay, sorry.
No, the thing, how does that relate to a relationship? Page 95, it says, in other words, every relationship in which one is not all present to the other, but each uses the other for only self-enjoyment, what would remain? I think this deals with what we're speaking.
Very nicely put, right? So if the relationship is just about mutual pleasure, you're already, right, in the I-it, right? So, and it's true, many romantic relationships, even beyond marriage, right? Whether it's before or during marriage, very often, right? It's like, oh, you know, I'm lonely, you're here. That's good, right? I'm getting something out of it. You're getting something out of it. Mutual consent, right? And so we're good, right? So he's saying it's got to be more than that, right? It's more than what the other brings you. There has to be more for it to last, right? Your bond must be based on something more than what the other brings you, because there will be moments where the other can't bring you what you need, right? The other might go through a crisis, or you might go through a crisis, right? And so now what, right? If it's only based on what they bring you, the moment they stop bringing you what you want, you're going to put everything into question. You're going to say, this marriage doesn't serve me anymore. It's time to move on, right? You're not going to be able to weather the storm, right? So it can't only, of course, it's good. The other brings us things, obviously. But if it's only based on that, you have a problem, right? Leon, please elaborate. That sounds interesting. And then Medina, did you have something to add? Or is that just a hand from before?
Yeah, it's okay. I'll go after.
Okay, Leon, please elaborate on the cheating. This is interesting.
Yeah, I just felt like if there was some type of like miscommunication that you had with your partner, and that if they don't bring you any more benefits in your life, then I guess that would be a reason why you would want to, not you, but like per se, like anybody, want to cheat on their partner because they're not, I guess, getting that type of fulfillment that they were probably getting in the beginning, and that they don't have that,
Exactly. Very
Yeah.
good. Right? If your relationship was only built on fulfillment, you can't, it won't last, because your beloved will never be able to always 24/7 fulfill you, right? So it has to be based on more, and we're going to explore what this more is, right? Especially the third one, we're going to talk about that, right? But for sure, right, if it's only based on what I'm getting out of it and I stop getting it, then I'm going to be feeling totally justified in finding it elsewhere, right? So that's why he's saying, be careful, right? If you base it only on what you're getting out of it, you're going to be tempted to leave the relationship, right? If you don't have more going on. Very good. Okay, great. What else? What else could we say? Is there anything else we could say about this having something, right, for an object, using or discarding another? What about I think we covered both, right? Let's look at the second one, which was the richest, the borders. The you has no borders. Now tell me, how are some ways that we set borders on our beloved and that we are now invited to take off so that the relationship can blossom again? What are some ways that you set borders on your beloveds?
I think, like you said before, when we assign roles to them, certain duties like the provider or the caretaker, the kids. So those are the borders.
Very
Right.
good, right? One of the main borders we set in a romantic relationship is the role of the woman, the role of the man. And this is the key to a lot of problems, right? But you're the provider. Why don't you make more money, right? Or you're supposed to be in the kitchen. Why you want to study? Or you're right. Imagine your husband comes to you one day and he's like, I want to become an artist. And you're like, what? I thought, did I hear this correctly? You're supposed to be working and making money. How are you now becoming an artist, right? So obviously you will feel like no, right? Or one time your wife comes to you and is like, yeah, we have 5 kids, but I think I want to work. I want to be outside. Why don't you stay home? Right? So these fixed roles are often what kill the marriage, right? What Buber is inviting us to think is, let's be more fluid in the tasks, in the functions that the man and the woman, right? Let us base ourselves not so much on gender, but on the qualities of each individual. Some men want to be like this, some women, let's arrange the tasks, right, in a fluid way based on the person's gifts and talents rather than based on their gender, right? A lot of problems in a marriage come because we are stuck in a role and we are unhappy in that role, and therefore the marriage gets blamed for it, right? Very good. Yes, very good, Hot, right? Remember we talked about expectations last time. When you come in a marriage with expectations, wait a second, we're married now, this and this and this should be happening. Why is it not happening, right? Or we're married now, you should be doing this, or I should be able to have this, right? And we come with our expectations and we poison the marriage, right? So Buber is actually kind of saying this, yes, the framework of marriage, but within the framework of marriage, oxygen, fluidity, flexibility, imagination, creativity, right? Let's have that framework, right? But within that framework, let's give people a chance to breathe, right? And the expectations are asphyxiating. The roles are asphyxiating, right? Let's get rid of that. We don't need to get rid of the marriage to liberate people. We can keep that framework, but within that framework, give oxygen, right? Very good. Let's see, Leon, explain yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I just wrote like what you were saying. Like I feel like for marriage to work, like it wouldn't mean like it would just be like a title that you're putting, I guess, with your partner, but it shouldn't change anything. Like you should still be with the same person. Like nothing. Like you were saying, like how because you're married to somebody, you have expectations of something, like that should already work out prior to a marriage. You know, like things shouldn't be, I guess, different because you're putting a ring on a woman's finger, or or you're getting married, right?
Yes, that's the idea. The way you were when you were dating, maybe this kind of freedom you had, the mutual respect you had, right? This is good. The only difference now is that you're entering into this kind of, lasting, at least this vision of a lasting relationship. You're wanting to create that together. And what Buber is saying, if you want to create that, you need to protect the you in your marriage. This is the only way to redeem the marriage when it's going bad, or to nourish the marriage, right? Very good. Yes, Hassan, go ahead.
With that said, the spirit, you mean when she's preserving the you have to preserve the spirit. Because from what I was getting from this reading is that he divides the world up into two spheres, the world of object and the world of spirit. And he says on page 89, spirit in its human manifestation is a man's response to his you. So is it more the spirit side of it, or because it said the you is the you, I'm sorry, the you is the you, because I'm trying to get it right, the you is the you, the I is the I, but he says specifically spirit is not in the I but between the I and you.
Yes, exactly. What he means by spirit is how shall I put it? What he's saying by that is that if you want to have a marriage which is alive, I think that's what he means by spirit, right? It's alive, it's vibrating, it's pulsating, right? This is not something in you or in them. This is how you treat each other is going to give life to the marriage. It's not I'm going to be alive and you're going to be alive. No, the way I treat you is releasing life in you. The way I treat myself, if I'm treating myself as a you, is releasing life in me. And that's where you have this kind of spirit or energy or life force flowing through the marriage. Does that work? Does that make sense a little bit? Hassan?
Yes.
Okay. So a couple more things in the chat. Yeah, so again, right, you can have a marriage without titles, right? This is kind of what he's saying. Let's have a marriage and then as a couple create what that marriage looks like instead of relying on society's template, right? I think that's where he's getting at. There's a template out there that our parents and grandparents have followed. It's not working. Let's change the template. Let's have the marriage, but let's have a marriage where we create what it looks like to be a man, what it looks like to be a woman, what it looks like to be a husband, what it looks like to be a wife. We create the template, a new blueprint, right? Based on who we are as individuals. That's kind of the idea, right? So we are learning several things. Let me write down the first one, right? So we can keep up. First of all, right? Have flexible roles, have a flexible template, right? Flexible blueprint. Or a creative blueprint, right? In other words, you decide how you're going to do this, right? Instead of relying on society's blueprint. Number two, we saw this before, no expectations, right? Liberate your beloved from your expectations, right? How else can we explode the borders? Remember Kierkegaard? We talked about Kierkegaard. What did we say? Let's see if any of you remember. What's another way we can put a wall, a border around our beloved in a marriage? Nobody remembers what we talked about with Kierkegaard? Go back to your notes from last time. I want to hear this. What did I say about Kierkegaard? And hope. How does hope explode the borders that we put around our beloved? Now I've pretty much given you the answer. I'm waiting. Go back to your notes. I have all the time in the world. Kierkegaard, hope. What does that have to do with exploding the borders around our beloved? That's the question. Okay, Gogas. Yes, what does hope do that takes away the borders? Think about what despair does. When you despair of someone, what are you doing? They cheat on you once. What are you now thinking they're going to do? They lied to you once. Right? Whoever was talking?
They'll cheat on you again.
Okay, exactly, right? So now you put a border. That's who you are. You're a cheater. You're a liar, right? That's when you start to despair. And hope is saying, no, you could be something else, right? I believe you could be more than that. I believe you are more than that. We can go in a different direction, right? You are opening up new possibilities, right? Yes, Gogas, very good. So the third point, right, is to hope, right? To hope and to keep possibilities open, new possibilities open for your beloved, right? They can be someone else. They don't have to be that cheater. They can change. They can go in another direction, right? So these are some of the ways, right, that we liberate the you in the other person. Now, here's the question. Oh, let's do the last one. What does it mean that the beloved, when you are with the beloved, you have nothing? This is the last line of page 55. Now we're entering the most important part. What does it mean in a relationship, romantic relationship, that you realize the beloved, you do not have something, you have nothing? What is opening up at that moment when you realize it's not about having? So what is it about? Yes, we're going to get to self-love, Gogas, in a second, right? They're not a possession. In other words, what you're realizing, right, in this third description is that the marriage is not about getting something. It's about giving. Thank you, Lensman. You're reading my mind, right? So, and I think it was one of you. I don't know who. It was recently in a class. Someone told me, I forgot who it was. Maybe it was Halmurad, I'm not sure. But it was the idea that the shift from just dating to marriage, right, is the shift between I'm in it to get something to I'm in it to give. The moment you start to see the relationship not as a place where you can get something, but as a space where you can pour yourself and offer yourself to the other, you're in a real marriage, right? So let me add this, right? The last thing. So 4, shifting from taking, right, to giving. This, in my view, is the most important shift. By the way, if you're having trouble committing, I know there's a lot of people out there, they're not sure if the person is for them, if they're the right person, they're not ready to commit, right? They're not ready to take that step. The issue in the head when this kind of doubts are arising has to do with you are thinking, what's in it for me and what am I going to get out of it? And the moment you shift to I am here for them, the commitment is going to be automatic, right? Do you see what I'm saying? A lot of the hesitation is coming because you're asking yourself, will I be happy? The moment you tell yourself it's not about my happiness, it's about their happiness and I choose to make them happy, you are now, there are no more questions in your head because you are in control. You see what I mean? You hesitate. Why? This is so important. Make sure you're all listening. Are you all listening? Let me see your faces. Wave at me if you're listening. Okay, great. This is very important. Why you hesitate? Because you're thinking, is that person going to make me happy? Am I always going to be happy with this person? So of course, you don't know. You don't control the person. They could change. They could be this. They could be that. You could change. Do we have no control? So of course, you cannot make a decision, right? The moment, however, you shift and you're like, no, this relationship is about me giving. At that moment, you are in full control because you're the one giving. You see what I'm saying? And so at that moment, there's no more hesitation. There's no more fear because it's not about receiving. You know, it's going to be, you can't control that, but you have chosen to offer yourself and to give of yourself. And at that moment, you know that this is a decision you can make over and over again. You are in full control. And now it becomes very easy to commit. Do you see what I'm saying? Right? This is for when you struggle to commit. It is because you still haven't made the shift from taking to giving. As long as you're on the taking level, you will not be sure. Because how can I be sure that this other person will always fulfill me? The moment you shift, I'm in it to give to you. I'm here to love you. I choose to love you no matter what. Now you can make the shift to commitment because you are the one in control. I choose to commit to you, to love you no matter what. To always happen because you have chosen it. There is no uncertainty there because it's in your hands, right? Am I clear? Does this make sense? Who is not understanding what I'm talking about? Okay, so this last point is so important, right? So make sure you write down all these points, right? For the other, right? Flexible roles, no expectations, hope, right? Keep possibilities open, shifting from taking to giving. These are all ways that we release the you that was imprisoned in our expectations, and allow the marriage to flourish again. But now there's another thing, is revealing the you in me. How does that work? How do we sometimes lose our own you in a relationship? Let's talk about this a little bit. How do we sometimes forfeit our own you-ness, right? Our own, how do we become an it to the other? And how should we begin the task of recovering myself as a you in your eyes and not as an it? Medina, go ahead.
I'm gonna say, like, if you put yourself in a situation where you're like, oh, it's fine if you use me for money, or it's fine if you use me for certain things, like, you are like kind of objectifying yourself because you're not making yourself have like respect, quote unquote, but you know what I mean.
Excellent, right? So the obvious one is like not allowing the other person to use you or discard you. When they're ready to discard you, you can make it a point that this is not appropriate. You can't force them not to discard you, but you can speak up, right? So many times, right? Very good, Evans. We lose ourselves. We lose, right? Oh, very good, Leon, right? We become the version that our partner wants, right? And we lose our true identity. We sacrifice our dreams. We sacrifice our desires. We sacrifice our principles for the sake of the other person, our integrity sometimes, right? But when we do this, we think we're helping the other person. We're not, because we're destroying the you, which is the basis of a healthy relationship. You see what I mean? How very often for this, we want to save the relationship by letting go of our dreams, sacrificing our integrities, letting ourselves be used. We think it's going to salvage the relationship, but actually Buber is saying no, because you're destroying your you. And when you destroy the you, the marriage dissolves, right? So also, we are called to protect our own you-ness, right? And so let me write down a few of the things we saw, right? To protect the you in me, right? Number one, not allow ourselves to be used, right? This goes for dating too, right? All of this works for both marriage and dating. Don't allow yourself to be used. Don't sacrifice identity, dreams, desires. Sometimes we sacrifice integrity, right? Don't explode the expectations, right? When someone starts to want to stick you in a role and what's the word? Fence you in, right? Protest. Don't allow, right, these fences to be formed around you. Fixed roles, fixed identities, right? You want to be able to communicate that you're not comfortable in that role or in that expectation. And sometimes this is the problem. We squeeze into roles that are not ours, thinking we can save the relationship, but actually we are dying inside, and therefore the marriage eventually caves in. Anytime you sense you are dying inside, you know the relationship about to die, right? So Buber is also inviting us to protect our own you-ness, right? To not allow ourselves to die inside, right? To not allow ourselves to be shackled in expectations, in roles, to not allow ourselves to, did I write this? Let me write this last point, right? Explode expectations. Don't allow yourself to be shackled in fixed, rigid, right, roles or expectations, right? Now, of course, sometimes you might be, I'm not saying you should never sacrifice, right? Obviously, sometimes we have to sacrifice for a little bit for the sake of the other. But if it becomes like the mode of operation of your marriage, there's a problem. If you're always sacrificing forever, this is problematic. Why? And you're not helping, because you're disappearing. And if you disappear, how can there be passion if you're not there, right? So that's the idea. We are learning some powerful tools, right, to re-dynamize the marriage. This is so powerful because you will notice, right, when a marriage starts, or a relationship, right, starts to go bad, the first place it starts to become lukewarm is the sex, right? You start to not enjoy it so much, it's not so great. And then many people, you know, they go to therapists, they try to fix that. No, you don't need to fix that. The root is always, where has the you gone? So anytime you feel, right, that your relationship becoming lukewarm, that it's becoming kind of bland, that the sex isn't so great anymore, right? The passion has become lukewarm. Don't think, oh, they're just, you know, it's not working. Don't think it's not the one. Don't think that, you know, we're incompatible. Look at the you. Where has it gone? Look at the root. How is the you of the other? How is your you? And you will notice, inevitably, I can guarantee this, if your relationship has become lukewarm, somebody's you is beginning to disintegrate. And that's how you can revive not only the lasting character of your relationship, but the passion can be revived simply by reviving the you, right? You don't have to go through terrible lengths in order to revive the passion. You don't have to do all kinds of acrobatics, right? Just look, how is the you of my partner? How is my you, right? So yeah, let me respond to you, Leon, right? If the love isn't there, does that mean your beloved is getting it somewhere else? Can you elaborate a little bit, Leon? I'm curious.
You were saying before, like if the love, or I guess the fire, wasn't there anymore, and I guess they're still in the relationship with you, then would that mean that, I guess, they're settling, but the thing is they might be getting it, I guess, you know, from some other person that's filling their desires, or filling that position that you're supposed to be fulfilling. But I guess since you're not doing your part, they have to go seek it somewhere else, or like they're afraid to break the relationship off and just rather just, you know, do something behind closed doors.
So it could be that, but also it could be simply that you're settling and you're not even looking, because a lot of time, at least for women, right, we get we become so bored with everything that we have the motivation to look outside, right?
Yeah.
So a little different than for the man, perhaps, right? Well, it might be so it might not be that she's cheating or anything. It might simply be that her light has been smothered. And so because her light is smothered, she's not anywhere else but here, but she's smothered, right? So yeah, when it feels like the love has died, it doesn't mean that it's hopeless. That's what I'm saying. This is so important. Are you all listening? Open your ears, everybody. Okay. It will feel like this at one point, that the love has died, that the feeling has gone away, that the passion is over. And at that moment you feel it's hopeless. How am I going to get that back? Buber is saying it's not hopeless. It's always there. It's hiding. It's imprisoned. It's choked up. It's asphyxiated by your expectations and your fixed roles. So what he's saying is the love is there, but it's in prison, right? You can release it. It's always, if you felt love at one point for that person, it's always there. It just has gone underground. It has gone into the dungeon of your expectations, right? So what he's saying, if you ever had love for that person, you should not worry at all. It's always going to be somewhere, but you have to release it. And the way to release it, he's saying, is look at the you. How is the you of your partner, and how is your you? And as you begin to, again, nurture the you, the love will slowly come out of hiding and gradually flow again, right? So this is kind of an indirect way. Instead of trying to, spice things up like we do, right? We try to spice things up. So we go on a cruise, right? It's the worst trip you ever took, right? Or we go, we try to spice things up with all kinds of ways, right? what he's saying is like, you don't need to spice things up. Turn your gaze to the you. This is the root. If this is wrong, the love will go underground. As you nurture the you, slowly the love, which was hiding, which was always there, will begin to flow again. Does that make sense, Leon?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Okay, good. So, right, never despair when you feel that the love has gone cold, right? Even Kierkegaard said this. This is simply that the love has gone into hiding, or the love has become imprisoned in your expectations, your fixed roles, your whatever, everything you're doing to destroy the you. Never despair. If you had it once, you can have it again, right? It's always there, but one needs to allow it to flow again. And the best way to do that is to turn directly. The clear question: how am I treating you? Are you a you for me? And am I a you for you, right? That's the key. If you remember this, you can salvage any relationship, no matter how bad it's become, no matter how many times there has been betrayal between you. You can heal that relationship by healing the you, right, in the relationship. Okay, great. Any questions? Any questions or problems or objections? Anybody want to add something? Okay, all right. I will stop the recording. Did I say everything I had to say? Yes. Okay, great. All right, stopping the recording.